How ChatGPT actually works. ChatGPT is probably the most well-known AI product right now. Millions of people use it daily, but most people have no idea what's happening when they type a question and get a response. Let's walk through it without drowning in technical slop. ChatGPT is built on a type of AI called a large language model, LLM. The word large refers to the size of the model. It has billions of parameters. Think of parameters as adjustable dials that affect how the system processes text. The word language means it works with text. The word model means it's a mathematical representation of patterns in that text. At its most basic level, an LLM does one thing. Given a sequence of words, it predicts what word should come next. That's the fundamental operation. When you ask ChatGPT a question, it's generating a response. One word, actually one token, each time predicting the most likely next word based on everything that came before. Training an LLM happens in stages. Stage 1 is pre-training. The model is fed an enormous amount of text from the internet, websites, books, articles, forums, and more. It reads all of this and learns patterns about language. What words tend to follow other words? How sentences are structured? What topics are associated with what kinds of language? It's not memorizing the text. It's learning the patterns within the text. This stage requires massive computational resources and takes weeks or months on thousands of specialized processes. Stage 2, fine-tuning. After pre-training, the model knows a lot about language, but it isn't particularly helpful in conversation. Fine-tuning adjusts the model using more specific data. Often examples of high-quality conversations in which a human played both the user and the assistant roles. This teaches the model what a helpful, well-structured response looks like. Stage 3, reinforcement learning from human feedback. Human reviewers rate the model's responses. The model is then adjusted to produce more of the responses that humans rated highly and fewer of those rated poorly. This is what distinguishes a model that generates grammatically correct text from one that generates text that's actually useful and appropriate. When you type a message, here's what happens behind the scenes. Your text gets broken down into tokens. Tokens aren't exactly words, they're chunks of text. Common words are usually one token. Longer or rarer words get split into multiple tokens. The word cybersecurity might be two tokens, cyber and security. On average, one token is about 3/4 of a word. These tokens get processed through the model's neural network. The network examines all the tokens in your prompt and any conversation history, passes them through its layers, and computes a probability for every possible next token. The token with the highest probability gets selected. Then it repeats all the previous tokens plus the new one go back through the network to predict the next token. This happens over and over until the response is complete. There's some randomness built in. The model doesn't always pick the single highest probability token. A setting called temperature controls the amount of randomness. Low temperature means the model mostly picks the top prediction, more predictable, more repetitive. High temperature means it's more willing to pick less likely tokens, more creative, but also more likely to go off the rails. The model doesn't search the internet unless a search feature is specifically enabled. When you ask it a factual question, it generates the answer from patterns it learned during training without looking anything up. This is why it can confidently state something wrong. It's predicting what a correct sounding answer looks like based on patterns, not verifying facts. It doesn't remember previous conversations unless memory features are enabled. Each conversation starts fresh. It doesn't know who you are, what you asked last week, or what you're working on unless you tell it in the current conversation. It doesn't understand what it's saying. This is the hardest thing for people to accept. The responses can be articulate, detailed, and convincing, but the AI model has no concept of truth, meaning, or correctness. It produces text that statistically resembles a helpful response. Sometimes that lines up perfectly with reality. Sometimes it doesn't. So why does it make things up? This is called hallucination, and it's not a bug. It's a byproduct of how the system works. The model is always generating text. It doesn't have a mechanism for saying, I genuinely don't know this. When it encounters a question it doesn't have good training data for, it still produces confident-sounding text because that's what the pattern matching leads to. The patterns say that questions are answered with confident, detailed responses, so it generates one, regardless of whether the content is accurate. This is why you should never trust AI output on factual matters without verifying it, especially for anything involving numbers, dates, citations, legal information, medical information, or anything where accuracy matters. The model doesn't know the difference between a correct fact and a plausible sounding fabrication. Every LLM has a context window, a limit on how much text it can process at once. This includes both your input and the model's response. Older models had context windows of a few thousand tokens. Newer models can handle tens of thousands or more. When a conversation exceeds the context window, the model starts losing track of earlier parts. It might forget instructions you gave at the beginning or contradict something it said earlier. This isn't the model being unreliable, it's a technical limitation. The earlier text literally isn't being processed anymore. The bottom line, ChatGPT is a next word prediction engine trained on a massive amount of text. It's impressive at generating human-sounding responses because it's learned incredibly detailed patterns about how language works. But it's not thinking, reasoning, or understanding. Knowing this helps you use it more effectively. You'll know when to trust its output, when to double-check it, and why it sometimes produces garbage with total confidence. Next up, we'll look at what is Claude, Anthropic's AI. Subscribe, comment, let's keep this conversation going. Thanks all.